You know how David committed adultery and then he got rid of Bathsheba's husband? He sent Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, out into the forefronts of the battlefield to basically cover up the fact that Bathsheba was pregnant with his child. And then Joab, one of his right hand men, the commander of his army, he sends a message to David to inform David that Uriah was killed. But before he says all this, he's like referencing to Judges 9, verses 53 through 54. Because he knew David would get mad about the loss. So to make all of this make sense, they got super close to the forefronts of like their enemy territory, so they lost a lot of men, including Uriah. So Joab is like, yeah, most of our men, passed away, but Uriah passed away. That's the one you wanted to get rid of. So he did that to basically soften the blow, so that David really couldn't get mad. Because David initially was referencing to Judges 9, and he was referring to Abimelech, and how Abimelech, when he got too close to the enemy territory, when they were in war, a woman dropped a millstone on his head and crushed his skull. The thing I find interesting about that, you had a millstone that dropped on your head. I don't know how high it was in height from when she dropped it from the top of the wall to his head, but it was anywhere from like 25 to 40 pounds. Still heavy enough because it crushed his skull. But instead of repenting, this man says, quick, homie, run your sword through me so that people don't know that a woman took my life. I said, that's what he's concerned about? So his armor bearer drew the sword to finish him off, but the Bible still records him as the man who fell to a woman. And this same pride unfortunately consumed King David in the midst of him covering up this adultery between him and Bathsheba. Yes, the difference between David and Abimelech is that David repented, praise God. Because initially, before he got Uriah to be unalived, he kept trying to get Uriah to sleep with his wife to cover up the fact that she was pregnant, to make it seem like it was his child, the husband's, instead of David's. And Uriah, being a righteous and devoted man, he's like, nah, how can I do that when my men are at war? I'm vowed for my country, all the things, right? And I'm like, wow. So David sends him back to the war, and he writes a letter, and he writes a death note. That same death note that he wrote to ask Joab to put Uriah out in the forefront, he made Uriah carry his own death note, not knowing what he was carrying. Now, David did all of this because he feared exposure more than integrity at first. God made both of them lowly. He brought both of them down. He had his judgment on both of them. One repented, David, and one didn't, Abimelech.